Thank you, and good morning, everybody. I'm Steve Shaw, Coordinator of Officials for the SEC, and it's my honor to get us kicked off today. Now, yesterday the Commissioner had primetime billing, and I guess I'm opposite Johnny Manziel, so we'll see how that goes. But let me start by saying I'm proud. I'm very proud of our football officials and the hard work and what they do week to week to prepare themselves. And in fact, we've had a really good all-season as far as preparation. We had two very strong spring clinics. We just finished our instant replay clinic. We had a referee leadership session that went well, and many of our guys worked in clinics over the summer, both as trainers and actually working in clinics. So it's been a very busy summer. From the end of last season, we do 2 quizzes per month to get everybody ready, and a lot of guys have organized local study groups. And all of this in preparation will be culminated next week. We bring all our officials into Birmingham. We have a 3-day fall clinic, and really to get them focused and set for the season. And we test them and evaluate them. They have a conditioning, their favorite mile-and-a-half run. But we work on mechanics, rules knowledge, and our points of emphasis this year. And all of this is set to get us ready to go for our fall scrimmages. And then so we're in full stride on week one of the season. So my role today, we're going to step through the playing rule changes for this season. And we have many to talk about today. And as you see on the slide here, so the NCAA has adopted a 2-year cycle for rule changes. And this is the on year, meaning that we have rule changes this year. In the off year, we can only have changes that impact player safety. But this is an on year, so there's a number of rule changes that we really get to. And just one point of note, so you know, all rule changes are voted on by coaches. Football officials do not get a vote. It's all coaches. So what you're going to see here today is approved by the coaches in the Rules Committee. So let's get started, and let's go to the first, and probably the one that has had the most discussion, and this is around targeting. And let me say, to kind of intro into this, I worked 15 years as a referee in the SEC. Before that, 6 years in the Gulf South. This is my 3rd year as coordinator of officials. So a long time dealing with officiating in the NCAA. This rule change is probably the most significant rule change in my tenure ever. It has an impact on our game and is very important. So let me just set, and what we're talking about is targeting. So the first thing is, you know, we have a foul and a penalty, and those things are very separate. So let's talk about targeting the foul first before we get into the penalty. So the foul itself hasn't changed. The targeting foul is when a player hits a defenseless player, and we'll talk about the definition of defenseless player, but hits a defenseless player above the shoulders, okay? Everybody just says helmet to helmet, but anything, elbow, anything above the shoulders, or uses the crown or top of the helmet to deliver a blow. That's a targeting foul. So that foul hadn't changed. Now, let me say that the definition of a defenseless player has expanded this year. I mean, we still have the same things, the passer, the kicker, receiver coming over the middle, a player completely out of a play, you know, the things we've always had. But we've added to that list of defenseless players this year, and just a couple points of note. So now a kicker, so the punter back there has always been a defenseless player during his punting motion, but now for the rest of the down, that punter is defenseless. Just like now a quarterback who throws an interception, you know, once the ball changes hands, that quarterback now, new rule, stays a defenseless player throughout the down. Doesn't mean he can't be hit. He can be blocked. He just can't be hit above the shoulders. So the defenseless player foul, the defenseless player expands the definition of what could lead to a foul. But as we said, targeting is still the same as it was last year. Now, the huge difference, and what's caught everybody's attention, is now the penalty enforcement for a targeting foul, it mimics our fighting rule. So if you have a targeting foul that's committed in the first half of a game, then you're going to be disqualified for that game. If you have a targeting foul that's committed in the second half of a game, you'll be disqualified for that game plus the first half of the next game. Playing time is a motivator to our players, and we think this will have a pretty significant impact. The Rules Committee really believes this will make a difference. Now, on top of all of this, we have instant replay has continued to evolve over time, but instant replay is going to play a big part in this. So the big question is, this is an important foul now, and if it's called, we have to be right. We've got to be right 100% of the time. So now we're going to use instant replay to go back and review every targeting foul that we have throughout the season. And if in replay we see that there was no contact above the shoulders, then replay can actually put that guy back in the game. Okay? So he can override the disqualification. The foul will still stand, and we'll penalize that, but the disqualification can be overridden. And you're going to see, this was a signal in the rule book, but we rarely ever use it. But now you'll see if our referees give this signal, that's targeting. And that is what will lead to the disqualification. Now, I've got a couple plays of video. Cole Cunningham, our video guy in the back, is going to bring those up. And so this is some plays from last season, so ignore the teams. What we want to do is let you see the type hits that our guys are going to be looking at and focused on to penalize. So as we roll the tape, roll it, Cole. This first play, many of you will remember this play, was in our opening game last year. And this is the type hit that we've got to make a change on. And you're going to see a couple good replays on this where you see the player really launch and go high right into the helmet. Now, our rule about the helmet coming off, this player, because it was a foul committed here, he doesn't have to go out of the game 87. But that's the type targeting foul that we want to get out of the game. Okay? So again, you see a number of views of it, and 23 is going to have to learn to lower his target in this situation. Now here's a play from another game. Again, we're going to get some replays of it. And player behavior here, this guy's, happy, chest bumping, and this is where I think the penalty will change this. And as you can see, a launch right into the head. These are what we call compass plays, no question about it. That's the type foul. That's the type hit we want out of the game, and we expect. Now, I did mention this. A player receiving a blindside block now becomes a defenseless player also. Now, here's an example of a player getting a blindside block high, and you're going to see a couple replays of this. So it doesn't mean now on these type blindside blocks you can't make a hard block. You just have to stay off his head, lower your target again. And so this is last year not necessarily a foul. This now by rule, because he goes high, is a foul. And then what you're going to see here, and this is going to be the illustration of instant replay. Live action, boom, that looks like a wicked hit, and our officials have a flag on this. Now this is going to be the type play reviewed by instant replay, and as you can see there, and what we call in the replay booth the money shot, right there, boom. That's a legal hit. Now in full speed, everybody saw it, and it didn't look like a legal hit. This is the type play, indisputable video evidence where he's not hitting him in the head, so we would put this player back in the game. And so that is the type foul that we're going to be looking for. And the rule book says, not Steve Shaw, what the rule book says, when in question, it is a foul. Okay, so that's why we have that great backstop of instant replay. It's going to put a little more, I don't want to say pressure, but an impact on our replay guys to get it right. And so this is, we've had everything from, I had a question of the SEC championship trophy, would that be a targeting foul? So, everybody's focused on this. So let me say two things in kind of closing on targeting. Number one, almost like a three-legged stool, there's three components, three participants that have to make a difference here. Number one is coaches. Coaches have to teach head-up tackling, see what you hit, lower your target. Players have to execute what they're being taught. And then finally, if the player doesn't execute it properly, the official has to have the courage to put the marker on the ground. And our expectations is that they will. Now, what I hope with this is this gets through and players, they change behavior. If you remember a couple years ago, we all had the change with our unsportsmanlike conduct, bringing touchdowns back. And let me tell you, we talked about it a lot, but once we got in the season, it became no big deal. The players changed their behavior, and it except for, you know, an Australian kicker at LSU, I mean, that would have almost gone unnoticed. So I hope this makes the same impact we'll see, but significant change as we lead into the season. Now, a couple other changes, and I'll hit these very quickly. As you can see, blocking below the waist has really been redefined completely. I won't get into the technicalities, but the concept you'll see in the open field, to block below the waist, you have to do it from the front. And we're defining that between a watch hand, 10 and 2 o'clock, to make that a legal block. We have a 10-second runoff potential now. If we have an injured player in the last minute of a half or the end of the game, and it's the only reason stopping the clock, now there's a 10-second runoff potential. This one will get a lot of air, I think, during the season. There's a minimum time to spike the ball. What does this mean? If we have a temporary stoppage, so a team's trying to drive, score a touchdown, they make a first down, we stop the clock, but we're going to restart it. If there are 3 or more seconds left on the clock, they're allowed to spike the ball. If they do it properly, you know, they can have time left for a last play. But if the clock reads 2 seconds or 1 second, then there's time for only one play. And so most likely you wouldn't want that one play to be spiking the ball. So this will come into play, but this will make it more consistent. The quarterback will know if he looks up and sees 2 seconds left, he's got to run his play. He can't spike it. So, that'll be a change. We've expanded unsportsmanlike conduct. From this perspective, we've always had a rule: if you get 2 unsportsmanlike conduct fouls in a game, you're suspended or ejected from that game. Now, these plays after the ball is dead that are like, you know, these little skirmishes that aren't really big hits. We're not talking about a late hit in the pile, but 2 guys just kind of chicken fighting, whatever the word you want to use. That now, you know, that's offsetting fouls. You know, it's almost like no harm, no foul. But even if it's offsetting now, that'll count as each of those players as unsportsmanlike. So if they do it again, they would be ejected from the game. And then a good change, I think, helmets off. You know, last year the player had to go out of the game if his helmet came off. Now, if the team has a timeout left, they can take a timeout and get that player back in the game. So it's important there. And a couple changes on uniform numbering. 2 players in the same position can't wear the same number. A couple rules changes on kick plays as far as enforcement. Replay, in addition to being able to look at a targeting foul, now at the end of any quarter, it used to be at the end of the half of the game, they can look at, is there time remaining on the clock? So we've expanded that. And a couple other minor changes that you probably really won't notice out there. But so as you can tell, a lot of stuff there. Quickly, the national points of emphasis, and this won't be a surprise. Targeting and dangerous contact fouls, that's number 1. That's what we expect our guys to make the correct call on. Coaches' sideline behavior, we're lucky in this conference. We got great, all 14 head coaches are terrific to work with. But that's a national point of emphasis to make sure that we keep our sidelines in good shape. Still a focus on unsportsmanlike conduct. So a lot going on from a rules perspective, and like I said, probably the most dramatic change in my career is around the targeting foul. And we're very dedicated to making sure we make correct calls there. So here's the bottom line for me as you head into the day. The world and you demand perfection from our football officials and our instant replay officials. And this is a noble goal, a tough goal, but a noble goal. But what I want you to know is our guys are really good, and we strive to improve every day, every week, to get better so we can match our teams. And I want you to know you've got my personal assurance that our officials are going to work hard and work our plan basically around preparation, execution of our strong on-field philosophies, and then a continuous learning process with video after that game to stay the best officiating conference in America. And bottom line, our conference demands that we're as good as our team. So big challenge, but we're excited about the season. We kick it off for us next week, and we're ready to go. So thank you for your time, and we appreciate the support you give our officials. Thank you.